Well, hi everybody again, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. This edition is being done on the 22nd of April, 2025, and I'm Craig Hamilton Parker. I'm a psychic medium, and on this channel we talk about all the things that are happening in the news and happening in the world, and make a few predictions about them, and give some psychic insights into what the heck is going on around us. So welcome to the show. It's not a live one today, but it's a bit live-ish because I've got some of your comments. So I'm going to use some of your comments to talk about some of the things that are happening today. Anyway, welcome to the show, Coffee with Craig. Well, good to see you all again. You've all been wondering where I've been. But anyway, first thing, don't forget, give us a thumbs up if you enjoy the show. Do it now if you can, because it's always helpful. It helps the algorithm so much. And if you're here for the first time, please do follow the channel and join in the comments, particularly, and have your say about what you think is going on in this crazy world of ours. Well, I've picked up a few of your comments, actually, and I'm going to show some of those as we go through the show today. The first one that seems to be coming up everywhere on all the comments while I've been away is, "Where are you, Craig?" Well, it was really nice. Jane and I have been over to our place in Italy that we're hoping to develop into a spiritual center eventually. But at the moment, it's like a house, and we've spent some time down in Rome, which is absolutely fabulous. And it's swarming with tourists down there, and I can't really complain because I suppose I'm a tourist as well, and Jane and the family are. And I put a few clips of that up actually in the members areas of the site, if for those of you want to see what our tour was all about. I've got something like a 3-hour video if you want to sort of have a look around Rome with us. I might put it up on this channel a bit later on as well, just for fun. So yeah, we were down in Rome, and of course Rome at the moment is the center of the world's attention, isn't it? Because there's been the death of the Pope. As I predicted, I know I did first talk about it in December 2023, which the Star picked up on and said, you got the dates wrong. Actually, I think you're a bit unfair with that, Daily Star, because if you look at my January predictions, particularly, I said it's going to happen now. It's going to happen very shortly in 2025. So I've talked about that. And there's also a full video out there that I've made about the Pope and about the predictions, and about the prophecies of the Pope and Malachi and people like that about who will be the next Pope. So that's something, you can go and look at my other videos about that. And while I was away, terrible flu, unfortunately, so you might get me coughing with Craig again today a bit as we go along. Hopefully not. So yes, but in beginning of 2024, my 2024 videos, I've said that we'd sadly, well, I said the Pope would be replaced. I didn't word it as the Pope would die, but I think in the implications of what I said, you would understood that. And then, of course, he came down with this terrible cold and flus and influenza, I think it was, but he died of a heart attack in the end. And of course, there's going to be a lot of speculation about who's going to come next. But I've covered that in another video, and I think we'll obviously need to do some more on that as we move along, and I'd like to do that as a live one later on for you. But there's a lot of us going on in the background of the world that people are not talking about, and I want to address some of those things, particularly a little bit about Kier Starmer, which one's got to be a little bit careful about talking about these things and how you word things. But it does bring up a lot of questions about our freedom of speech. But I'm going to come to that in a moment. Now, what I've done, I thought to get today's show kicked off. Now, I didn't want to go fully live today because I didn't know if I'd end up in a complete coughing fit or sneezing and streaming eyes. So I thought I'd do it not live this time. So I've taken a few of your comments that were coming up while I was away, which I've been itching to sort of comment on. Some of you've come up with this. That was quite interesting. Hi, Craig, your Iran bomber plane prediction went viral in Iran and globally. No, I didn't realize that. Also, Iranians chanted for Reza Pahlavi and Noraz, just as you said. I always get the pronunciations of things wrong. Please keep updating. You have many fans here. Well, isn't that nice to think that people in Iran also follow us, because it's one humanity, isn't it? Iran is often seen as the enemy, but it's not the people of Iran that are enemies of the world, just as it's not the people of China who are the enemies of the world, or of North Korea and so on, because we're one humanity. But we have some rotten leaders sometimes, and that is what creates the tension in the world. It always seems, it's like in your private life, isn't it? A small number of people cause an awful lot of problems for a great deal of people. It's always the one or two. It's like when you set up anything, for example, on the internet. My website's going through some changes at the moment. Everything's fine until you just get the one odd person that sort of not hacks, but uses the system in such a way that it just can't cope. There's always one, and you've got to, and most of your work goes for accounting for that. But I do feel that we're going to still see. I'm not going to go too much into the Middle East at the moment because I want to talk about the Kier Starmer stuff particularly. But I do feel that we're not seeing the end of it in the Middle East yet, and I think we will see. Despite what happened, this is going to be a bit longer ahead, but despite what attempts are going to be made to settle that situation down there, I think ultimately it's going to be they're going to clobber the Iranian nuclear sites at some point, which will be very tense and very worrying for the world. But we will get a good resolution in Iran. And like I said, one of my predictions I've been making for a while is I see the royal family going back to Iran. That the remnants of it anyway. Now, it was also quite interesting that some of you guys were picking up on what I said earlier on in the year. You get longer in prison for free speech than grooming gangs. So free speech is costly and doesn't exist. Russell Brand is a smokescreen. Kier Starmer is a lawyer. The law is an arse. So, okay, guys, I'm always pleased to see contentious comments, actually, because I think it's quite interesting. But we are having a problem with free speech at the moment because, like it or not, the press at the moment is very suppressed. And I've got to be extremely careful what I say on this channel as well. I can't speak completely free. And that's not YouTube's fault. That's not the platform's fault. It's the fault of the way the governments of this world seem to think you can have free speech about anything as long as it doesn't criticize us, and this is what the censorship thing we have in the world at the moment. And I think it's very, very worrying. And this is something that's being picked up, isn't it, by people like J.D. Vance, and when he comes over to the UK and starts lecturing us, and also Elon Musk saying about we don't have free speech because obviously he runs X, and Trump saying, no trade deal, guys, unless there's some free speech element put into this. So we in the UK are looking like some pariah state sometimes. And it makes you think, oh, actually, they're absolutely right. Because if you're going to have a look on X, you'll see all sorts of things, which I can't really talk about on here, about what's going on with our government here in the UK. Some of you guys have picked up on it. Now, this is your comment, not mine. All right. I'm not going to mention it because I don't want to get censored online here. I won't read it out. But this is the sort of thing that's being not talked about in the mainstream news at all. And it's contentious. Anything with Lord Ali, for example, I mean, Jane and I, as I've said in one of my other videos, um, we we met him, we knew him reasonably well. We thought at the time he's quite a very, very nice man. Actually, the time we knew him, and it's a shame that human elements are all tied up in this. But there's Kier Starmer is not really being truthful with us about his life. Let's put it that way. We need transparency, don't we? This was what went wrong in America. It was the lack of transparency that created the problems over there. And do we have transparency now? We don't know. Is Fort Knox being robbed of some of its gold? That's something I was talking about a while back. We don't know. Is there something missing? What corruption's been going on in all of the countries of the world? And it strikes me that here in the UK, we are just as up to our neck in the swamp as they were and still are up to a point in America. You know, it needs clearing out. So I did talk about this, of course, and a lot of you were putting comments up. You predicted a scandal around Starmer, and it looks like it's happening now. Now, like I say, we're a little bit compromised about how much we can talk about these things. And people have been asking also, wish you could tell us this rotten government is about to collapse. Well, perhaps the good news, but it's not necessarily good news, really. I have said that Kier Starmer's going to go, and there's a lot simmering in the background. Yes, so we could think about this in terms logically that something's going to happen. But I've been feeling for a while that Kier Starmer won't last long, and I feel it's going to suddenly start to pop very soon. It's going to start to pop, particularly since we got here we go with the flu. We got some of the May elections coming up, not that far away, of course, which have been, you know, we don't like the idea that perhaps another party is going to be able to get in, Reform in particular. So we're going to cancel some of those elections. Now, as we get closer to that time, I think the public mood is going to start to change and say, why can't we have that? You know, we're getting fake excuses why we shouldn't have an election in some of these sort of by-election type things that are coming up, which would, you know, and mayors and things like that, the questions about who's going to be allowed in, you know, we can't sort of say there's one rule for the world and we've all got to obey that and we've got freedom of speech, except, and the rule making mindset of Starmer, I think, is being exposed. He's not liked. His government isn't generally liked at the moment by people that voted for him, don't like him as well. So Starmer is going to go. He's going to go, and he's going to go, I feel, very soon. We're going to see it pop very soon, perhaps in May, right at a critical time. So who will replace him? Now, I have spoken about this before, and I spoke about it before in my predictions for 2025. But if you have a think about it, who could replace him? If what they're saying is true, and, you know, I'm not saying it's true or not, I've got to be very careful what you say. And contenders for the position of PM, who would have to be revoted in, not by the public, but by the Labour Party. I don't think West Streeting would be a contender, really, because, you know, for example, he's a gay candidate, and if this question is about those type of things, then I think the public would, you know, it would, wrongly, I say, but the public would probably not be open-minded enough for that. So that's not good. Rachel Reeves, does anybody like Rachel Reeves? Hands up. You know, I mean, awful arrogance there that people are really turning against. Angela Rayner, well, she's a person with some integrity, yes, I think you could say, but not a particularly popular figure. They don't seem to come across very strong. And I've been saying for a while, actually, and I've said it a long, long time ago, that Yvette Cooper would be the Prime Minister. So I said that a long time ago, and I got a bit upset with someone because they were betting on it. So someone's going to make a lot of money on this because I said this right back. Let me know if it comes off. You owe me a drink. But Yvette Cooper, I feel, is going to be the next Prime Minister to replace Kier Starmer. So that's what I've been thinking on those things. So there's so much else that one could talk about this, but it is too speculative, and it's also a bit, until we know the truth, and we should know the truth. This is the thing, we shouldn't be sort of told half truths and have to look on X to find out what's really going on in the world, and it's been that way for a long time. Now, what about Canada? Because some of you have been also asking about the Canadian elections. Any predictions for the Canadian elections on April 28th? Now, I have already kind of said some of the things about that. At the moment, the front runner is Mark Carney, who was, we know him over here in the UK because of his involvement with the Bank of England. He's another... Excuse me, I've told you I've got cold. He's a bit of another liberal-minded Justin Trudeau sort of character. I don't think he's quite as ghastly as Justin Trudeau, personally. So against the odds, I still feel the conservative side of the Canadian government's going to get in. It's going to be a lot to do with turnout. It's going to be about housing issues that they've got in Canada, but it's also going to be about nationalism because Trump rubbed Canada up the wrong way and is still rubbing Canada up the wrong way. But if something changes there, and it's not a lot of time to the 28th, but if something does change, it might soften the feelings of people in Canada to vote for Carney because he's more anti-Trump. But what's his name? The guy there, Pierre Poilievre or Pierre Poilievre. Sorry, I'm not a pundit, and I always often get these things wrong when I say things. So I'm an idiot. But I think I feel he's gonna win the Canadian election. So the Canadian election goes to Pierre, and that will, by the absolute skin of the teeth, it's going to be absolute neck and neck. In fact, there might even be a recount of some sort happening in Canada over it, because it's going to be very, very close indeed, and there's going to be a lot of question marks about that. Okay, so that's one of the other things. Now, there was another odd prediction I made that came up. I'm just looking for the what else you got? No, not that one. We know about that. Sorry. I've got a few here that I can click on. Where's it gone? Sorry about this. Here we go. There it is. A few of you from Sweden said this. Hi, Craig. In your world predictions, you mentioned the Vasa ship. I don't know if it's spelled with a V or a W. Vasa ship in Stockholm. Today, climate activists staged and demonstrated on it, just as you foresaw. Excuse me. I'm coughing my way through this, but oh, we had a rotten flu. We did. Yeah. Anyway, interesting, because this sort of prediction, where you make a prediction about something really obscure. I mean, most of you don't know what the Vasa ship is in Stockholm, or it's so obscure a thing to be in the news. Suddenly I say something about, I saw an attack of some sort happening on the Vasa ship. It could even been a knife attack, I said. It wasn't actually a knife attack, but there was a climate change attack and activists demonstrating all over it. So, sometimes it's the weird stuff that is the most interesting. It's not an important kind of prediction for the world. It's kind of a small thing, a bit like the one where I said Charles gets hit by an egg. When you say something weird and it happens, I think it makes you think about the nature of clairvoyance, hopefully, because other stuff that's in the news, obviously, sometimes I can get influenced by what I see and hear. And also, of course, it's really important that my own mindset doesn't get involved with it. So sometimes the weirdest stuff that comes out of the blue, I think, is the most interesting. Which was also another one, actually. I think someone made a comment about it. I don't know if I got the comment here. But I also made a prediction that they were going to, we were going to get an AI version. Well, not an AI version. An AI was going to help us crack the Jurassic Park sort of idea that there would be a Jurassic Park type creature, and I said the dodo, and or the mammoth, and also news broke just recently, in a few weeks ago. Excuse me. News broke recently of a genetic leap forward where they reckon that they're going to have some animal from the past very shortly prancing around. Now, could that be a dodo? I mean, what a thing to do, bring back the dodo, or a mammoth. I mean, it's a possibility, but I saw it happening. It was all over the newspapers. It was particularly in the Guardian newspaper. I'll put some little clips up of some of these predictions I've made, little shorts up later on, and I'll put the news articles next to it so you can see that what I'm saying and where you can find the references. But there we go. Yeah, I thought that was a really odd one because some of the people I know in AI were quite interested about that prediction. And were private messaging me a lot about the dodo. So that was an interesting one. So there's some thoughts for you. The Pope stuff's worth a look. I'll put a link in at the end, or in the prediction in the description below as well about the Pope, because a lot of you were picking up on that, and it's also interesting some of the things I've been saying there about who will be the next Pope. And I've kind of got this strange sort of image, if you watch the video again, of the swan, and that's not in any of the known predictions about the Pope with Malachi made, and the predictions of the Pope, or Nostradamus made. Nostradamus did say some things about potential future Pope. He saw a young, dark-skinned person with the help of the great king will deliver the purse to another of red color. That's, some people have taken that as a prediction that the next Pope will be of a colored man, but I don't know whether that's I don't see that myself. It'd be a great thing perhaps at one point somewhere, but I don't see it happening yet. I also asked the I Ching about the period ahead. It gave us the hexagram of a doubling of water, which is called the abyss, which often seems a bit of a scary sort of hexagram for the future. It suggests water. And when I cast the hexagram, I felt it does again relate to I saw before about the floods and things of the shipping problems, but could there be a really big flood coming soon? Now, I know Italy's got major floods in the north of Italy at the moment, and because in our house in Italy, was affected by some of the water and things like that. But could there be somewhere else? Could there be somewhere? The Ching suggested this. It's kind of seeded some thoughts in my mind, but I thought it would be somewhere really unexpected. I get the sense there's going to be a major flood somewhere really unexpected that's quite dry. And you know what? I think it's Turkey. I don't know what the earth their weather systems are like there, but it felt like somewhere that had palm trees. It felt like somewhere had an Islamic feel to it and a touristy element to it. So could it be Turkey? The Ching hasn't said that, but it could also be as symbolic, also as an interpret this, not just as water. If you get a hexagram, number 29, if you want to look it up, the abyss, it had a moving line in the second place, which is pretty good because it suggests that come out of problems, because you can plot another hexagram from that and it would be holding together hexagram. So could it be there's some more overwhelming troubles ahead? And the guidance of that I Ching oracle is to say, keep flowing like water, fill up the abyss, don't flow on, move on, keep going, and fill up one pool and move on to the next, just like water eventually always finds its way to the sea. So it's kind of taking your time, having patience, having thoroughness, And that moving line in the second place suggests a small spring that can make greater influence as time moves on. So although the hexagram has a sort of a bit of a negative side to it, it's also very hopeful, and that through perseverance we get there in the end. And that might apply to world conditions at the moment. We've had a major shake up at the moment. It feels like the world's been stood on the edge of a precipice, on the side of an abyss, but it says move on, fill up, it moves on. So I feel that we're going to perhaps see a change perhaps in the markets now. The markets have been very volatile. This could suggest an evening out of things, a slow and gradual improvement towards better conditions. That we're still going to have all these deals being done around the world over tariffs, but I think the worst is behind us now, and I feel that we're going to start to see a gradual return to stability with the markets gradually. I don't see us actually. I don't see us actually falling down a slippery slope with that. Not certainly at the moment. And it's also interesting, like I said, all that. What do people know in the background? What do you have for comments about this, guys, about what's happening in the world? When going back to the idea of the idea that JD Vance, Elon Musk, and Trump have all said, we're not going to do proper deals with you unless we get proper freedom of speech. That was mentioned. Now, it's not big headline news at the moment, but Kier Starmer, is he compromised in many ways? I.e., compromised by Trump in some respects by saying, we want freedom of speech first, and he can't give that freedom of speech because there's stuff that's not allowed to be said in the news yet. So it's a sticky situation the world is in at the moment. So let's hope things do flow on and move on to a better state of affairs for the future. Anyway, thanks for following the channel. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for those thumbs ups, guys. And if you like supporting the channel, do please support the patronship side of this channel or the YouTube extras side of the channel, where I can post up some extra videos for you and things like that now I'm back, and help us, particularly with our GoFundMe project, to try to get that Italian place into a proper center. That's what we're hoping to do. So have a look at the pages linked in the description below. All right, thanks very much. See you soon, guys. Bye.
If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, the Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism.
And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time
Charles will come to become King Charles. But his reign, I feel, will be short.
I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. A marvellous person she is. She does something extraordinary that could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay. Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right? A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023. I've said it before and I say it again. I feel Israel, with the help from the USA, will strike the Iranian nuclear facilities. I said that there would be an earthquake that would shake New York. At this time, I've been sensing that for a while that there's going to be a big earthquake of some sort. And this could well come up during April period. I'm seeing a bridge collapsing, actually the whole infrastructure of it going. I predict something very dark happens to President Joe Biden. He's been pulled from power, sacked, as it were, and quite close to the election time. But I kind of sense it's more to do with illness, perhaps, senility, and people stopping him because of that. So it could even be that a new candidate will run for the presidential nominee. I predict that Trump will win the November 2024 election. And I feel very strongly that the black vote is going to move towards Trump. See him as a sort of a bit of a cool guy. I can't see Trump being put in jail despite what they're throwing at him. I can't see a jail sentence with him. But I get the feeling one of the candidates has an attempt on the candidate's life. Could there have been a plan to assassinate either him or Trump, perhaps? There's going to be an assassination attempt on Trump, I think. That will fail, but he might maybe get wounded or something like that. A hit or attack on our airplanes, on passenger flights or even freight flights. Because I also had at the similar time, I was also seeing this image of helicopters on fire as well. I seem to see like the west of America on fire and the east of America underwater, huge winds. And I actually saw, just like we had a major problem here in the UK where a tower block went up on fire, I see a tower block deserted